Hey, welcome to Verbal Tea, the journaling podcast, where we tune into our inner voices more than the voices of those around us. Each week, we explore topics through journal entries based on journal prompts that me, your host, Globe, comes up with for myself, my guest, and the tea lights, which is you. This month, our theme has been Conquered and Comfort, where we take a deep look into mental health of the things we've overcome and the safe ways that we comfort and protect ourselves. This week, I have been honored to have an amazing guest who is a survivor, an advocate, and a fellow podcaster. This is my podcast family. They have their own podcast called Decree of Dominion, where they explore all kinds of topics and they go deep. They go to the dark side, they go to the spiritual side, and there are so many calls of action that help you feel empowered and take your healing journey to the next level. I am so excited to have this guest with me. Let's introduce Dominion.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tea Lights. Welcome. I'm pleased to be returning member of the Verbal Tea with Globe. How are you all today?
We're well. You want to give it like a pause, like Dora the Explorer. Well, what's your favorite part?
What's your favorite thing?
I like that part too.
Right. Well, awesome. And so I'm Dominion, founder of the Create Dominion podcast. We specialize in highlighting domestic violence survivors, mental health, dating relationships, and um, going into 2025, starting a new series on the light versus the dark and spirituality. So that's a little bit about us.
Oh, yes. Okay, you guys, I don't want to gush too hard, but this is the concept king, okay? He'll come up with the dopest concept and the most creative, catchy title for it, and then just the Black Garden series, you guys. If you are done listening to low vibrational, yes, I said it, low vibrational relationship discussions, and you want to hear something that actually has depth and can help you get clarity, inspiration, and empowerment, listen to the Black Garden series. Okay. It's on Spotify, wherever you stream things. I'm on there too. It is so good though. Like he talks to all kinds of different people, professionals, couples. It's okay. That's enough. Enough of the gush fest. Anything you like to add before we get into the topic?
Yes, I just would like to encourage all the tea lights to decree the dominion of your mind and reveal the true light that shines. I'm just excited to get started.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is a very vulnerable episode today, and I'm just really grateful that you wanted to be part of this because I think that when it comes to mental health, we have a lot of people starting to talk about it, but to have a man on the podcast to discuss this, what an honor. I didn't even have this on my vision board. This was like beyond the stars for me. So I'm so happy to have you on. Before we get into what you wrote, I ask everyone this. What is your current relationship with journaling?
A current relationship, I'm a big journaling notepad guy. That's actually how I come up with all the concepts. I just like to write everything down, anything, just throughout life, throughout the day. You might have a word that comes to mind. I like jotting it down and then writing, concepts out for it. And then they turn into good material for episodes. And so everything that I've written for to create Dominion, if you have already listened to an episode, it's all through journaling, jotting things down, and everything coming into fruition. So just pleased and blessed to be honored.
Oh, yes, a man with a vision, just the visionary. And we've talked about this before the show and numerous times. It is so cool to see someone coming with this podcasting boom who has such a specific, solid purpose, and you have such a great impact. All of your episodes are so good. But we're going to get vulnerable. You let people shine a light on their stories all the time. So, what an honor it is to have you shine a light on yours. I gave you two different prompts to choose from to write on, and one was to write a letter. You want to tell us more about
Awesome.
that?
Yes. And so again, I am a domestic violence survivor from age 14. Me and my mom as well. Um, Survived attack on November 27th, 28th of 2010, Black Friday 2010. I'm at the age of 14 years of old. Born and raised originally in Lexington, Kentucky. Do have a sister, biological sister from my mom and dad that was gratefully not in the home at that time, but I did have to uproot and move the family to Indiana, where I currently reside. And so I did write a letter to the 14-year-old version of me. And so this goes: Dear 14-year-old me, I know you're hurting in ways that feel impossible to explain. I know your heart is broken, your trust shattered, and your soul heavy with the burden no one your age should have to carry. What happened to you and mom that day after Thanksgiving in 2010 will forever mark your life. But let me tell you something you can't see right now. You will survive this. I'm writing to remind you of your strength. Even in darkness, there's a part of you that refuses to give up. That strength will become your light, the very thing that pushes you forward, even when you feel like there's no way out. You're going to grow in ways unimaginable, and this broken piece of your past, while always a part of you, will no longer define you. There will be days when the weight of this memory seems unbearable, but I need you to hold on. Hold on to the fact that this pain is not the end, it's a beginning. You'll rise from this even when you can't imagine how. You will transform the scars into stories of triumph, resilience, and love. It will take time and it will take healing, but you will make it through. People will come into your life who will show you what love and safety really mean. They will teach you how to trust again. And most importantly, you will learn to trust yourself. You will learn that your life is precious, even when someone tried to take that truth from you. The path ahead is not easy, but it is full of meaning, purpose, and the kind of love you deserve. I want you to know that mom will find her strength too, in her own time and way. You'll both walk this journey of healing side by side, even through the hardest of times. The bond you share will only deepen, becoming unbreakable in ways that few people will ever understand. You are still that beautiful, vibrant soul, full of potential and worth. Don't ever let the darkness convince you otherwise. What was meant to destroy you will become the soil in which your resilience grows. You will be more than a survivor, you will be a warrior with love and the deepest pride in your strength, your future self.
Wow, that is beautiful. Oh my gosh, little bro, that is wow. That's powerful. I I just gotta give it a moment. The way what stuck out to me is like how you acknowledged the feelings and the weight of what little you was going through, but how they will change, turn into stories of victory and triumph. It's a love letter. It's not even just a letter. That's a love letter to young you. How did it feel writing that? Like even portaling yourself back to that time.
Yes, again, I always, just on my show, I always encourage people to go to the darkest parts of the mind to reveal the true light that shines. And the reason I say that is, um, even though it happened, it doesn't define you. And so, just some of those words that were placed into the letter, it's all about resiliency. Life is about, what you do when you get knocked down and how you respond. Um, and a lot of times we just sit in self pity and we wonder, Why isn't this working? Or why the, oh, woe was me, why this happened? And I encourage everyone to stop being a victim. There's a reason I call um, those that go on my podcast and share their story, warriors and survivors of domestic violence, not victims. Um, a victim, my opinionated definition of victim is what you're listed as when the act happens. Whether you're in the hospital, when the doctors are writing, when the police are taking a statement, the victim is the nameless NPC for the paperwork, but not who you are as a person.
Mm.
And so the person you are is a survivor, is a warrior. The actual act that was committed against you is what the victim is. And so the real victim is the failed attempt at taking your life, but you are a warrior that survived.
Wow, I've never heard it broken down like that. How you said, because you hear people say don't have a victim mentality. You hear that all the time, but nobody has ever gone into depth of what they mean by that. It always kind of sounds dismissive, but the way you explained it is very empowering, where it's like that doesn't really, it's not a comment on who you are. It doesn't say everything about who you are as a person. It reduces you to just that experience. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just like if you go to the doctor and they say, um, just for example, it's October, so breast cancer awareness. Um, you're not a victim. When you survive breast cancer, that's why they call it survivor. The victim is the chemotherapy, the radio therapy. The victim is, what you went through, not what you overcame. And so the person you are is the survivor, is the warrior,
Hmm.
is a survivor. And again, the victim is um, the actual act of what you went through.
Wow, the way you said that a victim is just for the paperwork, that's not who you are. That's a soundbite if there ever was one. And I'm going to, as a survivor myself, I'm going to hold that close to me. Um, and I just changed my language because I always want how I express how I feel about myself and, acknowledging what others have gone through. I always want it to be in an empowering light. I want to always acknowledge their power, their choice, their resilience. And so I say survivor from that standpoint. But I've never seen victim as like a dirty word, but it kind of, I won't say dirty, but it does diminish a lot of the power that a person has.
Yeah, you can also look at it as like victim is, what they say in the morgue, right? It's not so if God pulls you through it, then again you're not a victim, you're a survivor. Victim is those, it's meant to honor, the fallen, and for us to hold those people in our hearts and strive to be better and to honor their memory. And so to call yourself a victim while you're still living um, is basically inviting death into you,
Hmm.
and again diminishing your power and making you feel that as you've already again passed. And so a lot of I want to encourage the tea lights and everyone viewing and listening, because again, take a moment and really look in the mirror and think about that. If you survived any part, if you're obviously you're still living, if you're listening right now, but if you have survived any form of domestic violence or mental health, whether it's depression, anxiety, suicide attempts, and anything, stress, death in the family, all those count towards mental health. Mental health is forever expanding. If you survived any of that, you know, look at your language, look at how you talk, um, victims again are for the deceased and for the honored fallen. And so, um, look at how you live your life. If you still every day say I'm a victim, then you're essentially living a dead life.
Mm. You're giving that experience the power instead of yourself.
Exactly.
Mm. Well, when did this all come together for you? Or did you always have that mindset? Or was there like a certain time you had that pivot?
With my journey is just I would say early on. So there's actually a whole like story. That's the reason why I'm actually starting the spiritual um warfare series next year again. No spoilers here. That's the only sound bite spoiler you get. But um, when I was around 12, again I grew up Pentecostal. I was told I was chosen by a prophet during a revival sermon when I was 12 years old on a Friday night, and then 2 years later, this act happened. Um, Surviving this failed murder suicide attempt, and
Mm.
then just from there, um, just being just all the things I've been through. Obviously, my mom and family, helped a lot, but it really didn't come together. It's still honestly coming in together even at 28. It's just one of those things where again you just keep moving forward. You know, um, and I encourage all the tea lights to attack your darkest moments head on. I think that's the best advice I could give on that. For many years, I just lived with a spirit of vengeance and rage and trying to search for those answers on, why did my father do this or why did I do that, searching for that clarity.
Mhm.
And to be honest, you really only need clarity from God. You really don't need the other person um, for clarity. A lot of times we always search for approval or clarity from other humans, and we really don't need it. And it doesn't have to be as, I love speaking about it because it doesn't have to be as a, I just want to encourage everybody that your story matters. It doesn't have to be as big as like your father trying to take your life, right? It could be as simple as maybe you were neglected as a kid. Maybe don't feel your parents loved you enough, or maybe they didn't care about your likes and dislikes, or maybe you always wanted to, you know, this is a journaling podcast. Maybe you loved to journal as a kid and your parents always dismissed it or said, why are you writing that stupid book? Or, why don't you play sports? Or why don't you go to college and be a doctor or something? Why are you journaling? It could just be as simple as just not, being supportive of your dreams. Um, just little things like that. You don't need that approval from your folks, right? You just need approval from yourself and from God. And if it's obviously world nobody's perfect, but if it's doing goodness in the world, then you know you should just take that as, hey, if what I'm doing is good and God is telling me it's doing good, then it doesn't matter what anybody else says or feels. A lot of times we attach our dreams to people's emotions, and
Mhm.
then we wonder why we're un, unhappy in life.
Wow. That's yeah, that's true. We do attach our feelings, our worth to how others feel about us and how they're feeling in the moment and how they treat us. When oftentimes how people navigate the world has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you.
Exactly, especially in relationships. I mean, domestic violence comes from something amiss in the relationship, and um, if whether you're a survivor or warrior, um, from the child's perspective, or you're the direct spouse or partner, don't allow your ex partner's insecurities and emotions or lack of empathy or lack of communication skills or lack of self control to determine your worth and determine what you do with your life. And don't let that you know kill your faith.
Yeah. And it's hard not to. I feel like a lot of times when it comes especially to intimate partner violence, um that people forget or don't acknowledge that a lot of the times those people, the abusers, groom those people that they're going to harm. So it's not like they just come out the gate a monster. They make you feel safe for a long time, and then just slowly chip away at you. And then once they feel like it's their time, then they show their true colors. And so I just want to take this opportunity to tell the tea lights to offer grace, to offer grace to people who are surviving that, because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You don't know all of the steps that were taken before it got to this big scary point. It's it's not always people just ignoring the red flags. Sometimes they change the whole color of the room and you don't even know it. Would you agree with that?
Oh yes, definitely. And I would just say that look for the warning signs. There's a lot of warning signs even before you get in a relationship, before you even go on the first date. There's key signs, even in my own experience with my dad, that there were several signs that we missed, but looking back, I was like, wow, we didn't even
Mm.
question that, or wow, we didn't even notice that. That probably could have changed. I wouldn't want to change it for the world, honestly, just because we go through things for a reason. God has a plan, but again, there are things looking back that if noticed at that moment, going back, like we would have been more well equipped to handle, I would say.
I believe that, but I feel like you guys should still give yourselves grace, because is how they do it. They sneak up on you and they take advantage of that trust, because without that trust they couldn't get anywhere. So they build it first. They build that trust. And so what seems like a red flag starts to just look like a quirk, or just, oh, this person's just been in a weird mood, it's just weird. That's it. We don't It's hard to see it for what it really is sometimes after all of that trust is built. So you're single. I have to ask, with that in mind, all of these experiences, how do you keep yourself alert without being completely jaded?
That's a great question. Honestly, um, I always use like football references, but it's kind of like a blitz, right? And
Mm,
for those of you that don't watch football, all a blitz is the defense sending more people to attack the quarterback than the offense has to block. So
mm,
essentially, there's five blockers, one quarterback. The defense, they normally send only four, but they'll send six. So that means one person's free. They can hit the quarterback as hard as possible and obviously create a negative play. And so it's the same thing in life. Um, there's just different things you can look out for. Try to look for warning signs. I try to look for purpose. What I mean by that is, what is the purpose of me wanting to cultivate this relationship with this woman? That's the main thing that I'm starting to look at, especially now. And I always like to be open and honest with myself. Um, One thing I've had to learn the hard way is every woman's not your wife. Um, Sometimes you're gonna, again, like she said, like Lope said, uh, hold yourself grace. There's gonna be some women where you meet, go on a great date, you end up sleeping together, and then you either never hear from her again, or maybe you date for a couple months and it just doesn't work out. And again, show yourself grace and be okay with that. It's life and we're all learning. A lot of times I would beat myself up because, I'd meet a woman, go on a date, go on a couple of dates, date for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and be like, yep, this is the one. I'm going to, date her for, another year and a half, going to go to Jared, get a nice engagement ring and, take her to wherever and propose. And then it doesn't always end up like that. Another thing I would say is know your boundaries, know your morals and your values and your worth, and know what you're willing to compromise with.
Mm,
Marriage and life is about compromise, and so um, when you're there's a lot of things that aren't compromised. Me, is cigarettes. I hate them. So if you smoke cigarettes, I can't do it. But it's even more serious things like religion or how you raise your kids. Obviously, I have twin boys. They'll be 7 next month. And so, how a woman, especially if she doesn't have children, how a woman looks at children, or even if she has children, how she raises her kids and her parental values are utmost important. So, if we have two completely opposite parental values, then it's obviously not going to work since we both have two separate sets of kids that would be joining in union with us. And so, those are some just quick tips. And again, I love what you said about grace. I try to show myself grace, show the other person grace too. Um, a woman's not going to be able to, that's what God's for, right? A woman's not going to be able to cater to every heartbreak that I felt or every, thing I went through. They're not going to be able to understand. I think another thing that's really good, even if you're in a relationship, show your partner grace for what they've been through.
mm,
Even if let's say I meet a woman that's never, never been through mental health, or even though it's kind of like everybody's been through something, but let's say she's never been through domestic violence, or maybe her parents, she grew up in a perfect family home. Maybe she not might not understand where I'm coming from with my situation, but again, showing me grace and me showing her grace for hey, I know that you never went through this, but here's how it looked for me growing up. Or and it's not even just with domestic violence or mental health. It could just be um the demographic of social status as well. Maybe if you grew up poor and the woman you're trying to date grew up rich, obviously you're going to have two different mindsets when it comes to money and poverty. And so um, you guys can still build a successful relationship, but just again, show each other grace. She may not understand what it means to eat, ramen noodles. She might have been eating steak and lobster for breakfast, or steak and eggs her whole life, and vice versa. And so just show yourself, show each other grace as well with that.
Thank you so much for that. I love that you said know your boundaries, know your values. I think that is where a lot of people get lost. And it's not to like blame or anything like that, but we're told, if there's a connection, go for it. And there's not enough emphasis put on, hey, establish who you are and what you want and what you don't want. Really, truly establish those boundaries before getting into a relationship so you can compare people against them instead of kind of freestyling, like, oh, I really like this person, so I'm going to be okay with this or be okay with that. And then later down the line, you look and you're like, I'm not happy. I don't like any of this. And I think that's what happens for a lot of people. We're just told, oh, just be yourself and just find someone who's who's nice to you or good to you. But that's not enough. You have to make sure if you plan on marrying that you guys can walk through life together. And that requires understanding how they make decisions, understanding their triggers, their parenting philosophies if there's children involved. And so I really like how you say reach to the darkest part of your minds, because once you do that, that's when all of those things start to fall into place. You start to get a picture of who you are and what you need in order to be your best self.
And I love that you said that. And just to add on really quick, um, from what you said at that last moment with, kind of just getting somebody that likes you, I want to speak to the men T lights real quick. Um, a lot of times we just chase women because we want, physical intimacy, or just somebody to hold us or what have you be. Or and then speak to the women T lights. Sometimes we chase men for financial gain or status, or again for that physical intimacy, and we ignore again our values. For example, for me, I hate cigarettes, but if a woman looks good enough then you have to determine like, for one night, for a couple months, maybe I could deal with it. And that's the lustful spirit of lust that we kind of deal with and tackle with on both men and women. Same thing with men. I mean, same thing with women. You know, he ain't got no car, no job, or oh, he disrespects me, but in the bedroom is good, right? So they're trying to tackle. Well, he kisses me good, and he holds me nice, when we're in the sheets. So I'm just gonna deal with him hitting on me or cussing me out or disrespecting me. And that's where that domestic violence stems. Again, what we spoke about earlier, that's how that trust is built, because we just ignore those values, and we ignore those. Oh, well, again, like Globe said, oh, well, he really likes me, or she really kisses me really nice when we're together, or I like the way he holds my hand. I like the way she rubs my shoulders after a long day at work. And we ignore all those red flags slash just drop our guard down completely, and then we're left wide open for those attacks from the enemy. So that's what I'll say on that.
I agree. And I love that you illustrated it wasn't always just violence. Sometimes boundaries that are compromised or that you make concessions for aren't even, you know, violent or explicitly harmful, but it's still against what you want, like cigarettes. That doesn't do any harm to you unless you're around them when they're smoking secondhand smoke. But like they're just harming their own bodies, right? So that's not a red flag like, oh, this person's going to put me in danger necessarily because they're just doing something to themselves. But if you can look past that, now they know there's a level of grace, and if they're a harmful person, they can just start to turn up the temperature little by little, and you're making all of these concessions, and then a big one comes and you don't even know where it came from because they're just piling up like just a slow snowball effect. And that's why I tell people like, hey, know what you don't want and stand on it. Stand on it, because the first concession you make is just an one one dice into the rest of the dominoes. You know what I mean? It really
Exactly.
it really can snowball.
And I will say too, also, um, be convicted in your values. Like the cigarette thing. I know it's like you probably listen like, oh, I smoke cigarettes every day, and you probably think it's goofy, but tell the other person some of those. We call them pet peeves, but a lot of times it's like a very like not serious, like laughing conversation while you're either cuddling or at dinner or kissing, or in the sheets or what have you. But have like a sit down at the table, and don't do it when you're drunk or um making love or doing anything like that. um Maybe it's on a weekend, you guys meet up, or maybe if you're already in a relationship, hey, let's go downstairs, let's have some coffee, let's make some breakfast, let's eat. All right, let's sit down eye to eye, man to woman, however, partner to partner, look each other dead in the eyes, and all right, let's talk about what makes us tick. What are some things? Hey, here's the things. You smoke cigarettes, I hate cigarettes. Look that person in the eye and tell them that, and be convicted in that. And if it's something that is unwavering, then you need to have that conversation. Because on the caveat side to the grace, a lot of times we have these things that we can't stand, and we don't even tell the other person. We don't even tell the partner. And so for them, it's just like kids, right? If you let your kid draw on the walls and never clean up after themselves, they think it's okay. And then you know and then you yell at them, be like, I said stop drawing on the walls. Now they're upset, and they're like, what's wrong with mommy and daddy? Like,
Hmm.
why are they yelling at me? Like, you never told me not to do this, and now you want to like throw it, get upset and scream, and or get frustrated. And then again, they don't. And the same thing with adults. you know there's a lot of things that, like, for example, ladies, if he don't wash clothes or wash dishes, and you're tired of always doing the dishes, sit him down, have that conversation at dinner or at breakfast, like, hey, honey, honestly, I don't really like washing dishes all the time. I do it because I have to, but if you could you, when I cook, could you wash the dishes um after I'm done cooking, please? And then make that. And then now something that could have been brewing into a big argument or kind of like snowballing, like Globe said, now it's a due to proper communication. Now it's maybe you guys wash dishes together, or maybe you put on some music and you're cooking and he's washing dishes, or vice versa. Now
Mhm.
it's a fun family or fun, cute little relationship thing, and that you're enjoying. But again, without those conversations and that communication, it could have been like, man, I can't stand him. He don't never clean after himself or wash dishes or do his clothes. But you never told him that was an expectation in the relationship. So he's thinking like, well, you got to think from a man's perspective, not every man, but hey, when you grow up, your mom does all that for you. And so you might be his first relationship, first real relationship. So he's like, shoot, I just moved in with her and she's doing all the cooking and cleaning and washing clothes. I'm good. And then they go on with that expectation and that assumption of, well, she's doing it, so I don't have to do it. But if you have that conversation, like, hey, when we move in together, I expect us to share responsibilities around the house. Now that's a standard for the relationship. And again, be convicted in that and say, hey, you know, if this isn't happening, this relationship's not going to work, and mean that and be convicted in that, and say, I am leaving this relationship if this is not, this standard is not upheld, and be serious in that. And then, as long as you hold those convictions and those standards high and be firm in that and don't waver from that, then you'll see yourself being successful.
Yes, stand on it. You have to. And it doesn't make that other person a bad person. If they don't want to do X, Y, or Z, that's a standard for you. That's their right. It's not their job to honor your boundaries. It's your job to honor your boundaries and make space for people who will. If they won't, they'll find somebody that will be happy to clean up after them or whatever it is. But it doesn't have to be you. And they don't have to be a bad person because you're not their person. I think that's another thing. I think people are hard to have those hard or are scared to have those hard conversations because they think that it has to end in hostility, and that at the end of that conversation either everybody's on good terms or there's a bad person. A disagreement doesn't always mean there's a villain. Ooh, everybody, just take a moment, grab your tea, grab your journal. Let's take a sip. Just take a sip with me. This conversation has been so powerful, and I've got some good news for you guys. It's not over. Tune in next week for part 2 of my conversation with Dominion, where we will be exploring some important things to understand about survivors and some very actionable ways on how to support the ones in your life today. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. I hope you guys tune in. Be well. But before we go, if you guys want to, I know you guys are going to want to hear more of what he has to say because this is what he covers consistently on his platform. So I'm going to allow him to tell you guys where to find him.
Awesome. And so the Career Dominion podcast you can find on Spotify, RSS, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and RSS to YouTube as well. Facebook page at the Career Dominion Facebook, the Career Dominion podcast on Facebook. Again, we're getting close to our yearly goal of 500 followers. So I think we're like 486 right now. So getting real close to that. I'm also on Instagram at Decree Dominion 24 and at TikTok at Dark Law Dominion 96. And so go ahead and give us a follow. Again, we have Dark Law Dominion Mental Health Series, episode 17. Gonna be dropping in the next few weeks. Episode 16 drops next Wednesday at 3 p.m. We also have Black Garden, like we mentioned earlier, that came out September 20th last month. So actually, 1 month anniversary for having that out today that I just looked.
Mm.
So go ahead and check that out. It's 22 episodes of greatness. And so, really, I'm excited to expand on the dating and relationship side of mental health. And then again, um, 2025, the new spiritual warfare series will be dropping. So, T Light, stay tuned from that. So, go ahead and follow those Facebook pages, go ahead and follow Spotify's, and then be looking out for that trailer to drop for that new series.
Thank you so much, Dominion. And as always, you can stay in touch with us at Verbal Tea Time on Instagram and TikTok, and Verbal Tea wherever you stream your podcast, including YouTube. And as always, you guys, focus on thriving instead of surviving. Spend intentional time with your thoughts and be well.